Greetings and welcome to What's New with Human Design, in which we follow the journey of the sun and the earth around the human design mandala. Do you trust your intuition? This is a really big topic and a topic that's close to my heart because when I was a kid, I was super intuitive on the one hand, and I was also good at math. Which one do you think I cultivated? Well, math was recognized as valuable. I had classes every term on math all the way through school. I was acknowledged and rewarded for my ability to calculate difficult equations in my head. When I was 10, we went to go and live in London for 3 months. My dad was teaching a quarter abroad for the students at the University of Washington, which is where he worked. And at that time, the pound was worth $2.40. And you can imagine how difficult that conversion was, especially for my parents who were not math people like at all. So they would always ask me to come and tell them how much something cost in dollars. And that made me feel really like smart and valuable as a kid. And so I went on to study math, and I won the senior math award at my high school. I took 2 years of math in college until I finally decided, no, this was just getting too kind of esoteric, actually, which is kind of ironic for math. But that's what happens when you get into higher levels of math, is it gets super theoretical. And but it was really something that I pursued because of the way that the overculture recognized it and the way that I received acknowledgement for it. Now, my intuition, on the other hand, made the adults around me uncomfortable. I felt things without really knowing everything. And when I talked to my parents about what I was feeling or what I suspected, they told me it wasn't true. And not to worry, because often it was kind of bad things that I was tuning into. Well, years later, I discovered that what I had felt was actually true, and that they'd been hiding it from me out of an effort to protect me. You know, which as a parent, I understand that impulse. We have the impulse to protect our children. At the same time, this also led me to dismiss my intuition for many years, for decades, in fact. I mean, until I was in my late 30s. And I didn't have any classes on intuition in school. It wasn't a subject of conversation in my family or my community. The closest thing was Ouija boards, which we played but also thought were bogus, just like seances or reading tea leaves, probably reading palms, you know, all of that, things like that. None of that was to be taken seriously. And if you did, well, then something was kind of off about you, and it was better to use your mind, your logic, your reasoning to get to the truth of the matter. That's how I was brought up. I mean, maybe you can relate to that. If you can relate to that, you know, give us an emoji of what that was like for you. I have talked to many clients over the years who have similar stories of some sort, how they either dismissed or didn't believe their intuition as kids, or they didn't share what they knew with anyone for fear of being ridiculed or pitied, you know, or just, you know, being made to feel less than. So it wasn't for me until my late 30s that I really started to explore my intuition, because I had run to the end of my logic, basically, and I'd overdeveloped my mind, and I needed to discover something else if I wasn't going to just kind of shrivel up, which was what was happening to me as an academic. So when I first discovered human design, I was elated to find a system that includes, names, and maps out many different kinds of intuition. And I've learned so much about what intuition is and how to cultivate it in myself, and in myself and in the people I work with. And I cannot overstate the significance of this. And the reason being that intuition reveals and fosters our connection with Source, and helps us to remember that we're not alone, but instead we're part of a much larger cosmos, right? We're something a part of much larger, even if we don't understand it with our minds. And so our intuition is like our interface with the, I like to call it the flow of life. You can call it the source of all that is. You can call it God, the universe. We have many names for this. But this is what our intuition shows us. And so human design has many, many different ways, like our authorities, for example, in human design. are all forms of intuition. Right now, we're going to be talking about the knowing circuit, because lately the sun and the earth have been lighting up a series of gates that are in the knowing circuit. Now, the knowing circuit is about your inner knowing. It's just knowing what you know, without having learned it somewhere. You didn't read it anywhere. Nobody told you about it. You didn't take a class on it. But it's just something that you know. It's not logical. It's not reasonable. It's not rational. It sources from a different place. It sources from super consciousness. And it shows us that the knowing circuit shows us many, many different flavors of this inner knowing that we have, depending on the gates and the channels of the circuit, whether it's being lit up by a transit or whether it's in the chart, defined in your chart or even open in your chart. Now, not only is this validating, right, seeing all these different kind of flavors and qualities of intuition, but it gives us a deeper insight into how intuition works. At least, the particular kind of intuition, including the awakened, the shadow, and the disempowered aspects. So the knowing circuit is the largest of the subcircuits of any of the circuits in human design, and it is part of individual circuitry. And individual circuitry is here to be different. It's here to bring change. It's on the leading edge of consciousness. It's not here to fit in. It's not here to kind of make it, suppress itself so that it can be a part of a tribe, for example, a part of the collective. It's much more about how we can be tapping into that gift of super consciousness and bringing through new forms and new ideas to help us to evolve, humanity. So I'm just going to wave to you guys who are there on Instagram. Hi. And so I have a lot of individual circuitry. I have a lot of the knowing circuit. So I know this really well. And it's been very, very helpful for me to kind of re-embrace and reactivate my intuition, is to see it through human design. So if you're interested in intuition, if you're interested in knowing more about it, if you've gotten disconnected from yours, or if it's been made wrong or inaccurate, in your life in some way, it's worth studying intuition in human design, because it can show you the different kinds, but also how to nurture it and cultivate it so that it can become something you can really trust. Because it's definitely one of your superpowers. Absolutely. Your intuition in general is one of your superpowers. And when I say superpowers, and I'll be talking a lot more about superpowers over the next few weeks, what I mean is these abilities that we have that are not generally acknowledged or supported by the overculture or by common culture. And because they aren't, when we tap into them, they seem miraculous, right? They seem miraculous, and in some ways they really are. So I'm going to go on to start talking about these transits, and what I want to give a little reminder here about what these transits are, okay? Is that right now the earth and the sun are in particular gates in the human design mandala, and on Saturday they're going to move into new ones, and I'm going to talk about what those are specifically in a minute. But what I want to remind you of is that when these transits happen, you have extra access to the energies that are highlighted than you usually do, especially if you don't have them defined in your chart. That is, they're not colored in your chart. So for example, for me, I have the 43 defined in my chart. I do not have the 23, and the 43-23 meet right here where the ajna goes into the throat. And during this transit, I have the 23 defined because that's what's being lit up. And it then completes that channel so that my throat gets defined. So now I have a defined throat coming through the 43-23. And during this, it's going to give me more ability to express my inner knowing, for me to express the ideas and the inspirations and the insights that are coming in from superconsciousness through this downward channel in the knowing circuit. So for you, you might want to look and see with the 43-23, which is where the sun and the earth are right now, is that defined in your chart? Is part of it defined and part of it not? and to see if you are going to have extra ability to express the ideas and the insights and the inspirations that are coming through for you. Now, the thing to remember is that it is projected energy, which means it doesn't have the power connected to it, okay? Because it's just coming down through the head and into the throat. The head doesn't have any power. All the power is lower down here in the body, in the motors of human design. And so it's not connected to that. And because of that, even though it defines my throat, it will work best when it's asked for, or what we say in human design, called out or recognized. Okay. So that's what you want to be looking for yourself before you express what's coming through. Is it the right time? Is it the right people? Is it the right place? Do you have what you need to be able to express this in the best possible way? But you will have extra energy for that during this time. The other thing is if you do already have it defined, some people will say that you won't really feel the transit so much because it's already defined in your chart. But what I've found is that if you've been expressing the lower aspects, either the shadow or the disempowered aspects of these energies, when it's being lit up in the sky like that, especially with the earth and the sun, you have the ability a greater ability to move from the kind of disempowered or shadow aspects into the more awakened aspects. You want to, with any of these transits, you want to be paying attention to that, because we have the ability, when we focus on how we're expressing a certain energy, we have the ability to move it over into the higher expression. And we have a greater ability to do that when it's transiting. Like, I can say for myself, this is not about something that's happening right now, but when I first learned about the Gate 51 in traditional human design is known as the Gate of Shock. And I used to say shocking things, and I used to receive shocking things, and I didn't know why. And it was when I learned that it's also known as initiation. It's also the energy for initiating myself and others into a higher state of consciousness. Now, when I learned that was the awakened aspect, I worked to shift my expression of that energy into its higher state, okay? So that I don't receive shocking things so much anymore, and I don't shock other people anymore. I mean, I've really evolved out of that. So this is what's more and more available to you as you are paying attention to when something gets more defined for you. I hope that makes sense. Please write a question or comment, and I'll always come back to it later in the recording if you have a question about that. So I hope if I can clarify. This week we continue with the gates in the knowing circuit, and currently the 2343, which I was talking about, are going to move to the gate 8 and 14 on Saturday. So this is in a few days from now. And in traditional human design, the 4323 was known as the channel of structuring, because it has the job of translating all of these insights that are coming in from superconsciousness into words so that you can express them. That does totally make sense to me. Karen Curry Parker updated this channel, the name of this channel in Quantum Human Design, to the channel of innovative thinking, which also totally, like, both of these really make sense to me. Like, one is, how do you take what can feel abstract? There are times when I receive feelings and insights and impressions that I then have to work to verbally express. Right? And that's what's happening with this 4323. But innovative thinking totally makes sense to me, because it's how are we bringing those energies that are coming in here and expressing them out through the throat. And I want to just reiterate that you will do best with that if it's being asked for. Now, when it's being asked for, the insights that you have can be absolutely game changers. I mean, to me, this is where we can have the incredible gifts of what comes from superconsciousness into our daily reality, where they can help us with the challenges that we have. And so that's the highest aspect of this. A lower aspect of this, like a disempowered aspect, would be that you're dismissing the insights that are coming in. that you get an impression, you're like, like that's nah, I don't believe that. That's just a crock of whatever, right? So you want to be paying attention this week if you start doing that, because then basically you're rejecting a gift that you're getting from the universe. And also the shadow aspect, which has more to do with power. Shadow aspect, in the way I use it, has to do with trying to gain power over other things, like things that are external in your life. And so the way this might show up would be, for example, if you get a hit, you get an intuitive hit, and then you use that to manipulate somebody else. Now, manipulation has a really bad, vibe in our culture. It has a really bad rap, right? Not all manipulation is bad. I mean, of course, we manipulate things all the time with our hands, right? But it's when you're trying to do it to gain power, and we do this unconsciously a lot. Right? It's not necessarily that you planned it, but start paying attention to if do you have a habit of that or a tendency to go in that direction? And you might have developed that because you had some fear around actually overtly expressing your insights and your intuition if they were made wrong. Right? And it could be because it is a superpower. If you didn't feel like you could be overt with it, you could be overtly expressing it, then you could be really using it in a way that's not its highest expression. Let me just put it that way. Okay. So you have the opportunity to change that over the next few days. Now on Saturday, the sun's going to move into the gate 8, which is known in traditional human design as the gate of contribution. And it's known as fulfillment in quantum human design. Now this is the final gate that's coming up from the G center up into the throat. So the energy has made all of its way around the knowing circuit, because it's the final expression of the knowing circuit. It's come down and it's moved all the way around the chart. It's come up through the central channel, and then it can express out through the throat. So it's gathered the energy of 3 of the motors as it's coming. So it has some power. It's still coming out of the G center, but know that means this power has also has been flavored with love, right? Because as it comes through the G center, it's going to pick up the flavor of love. And it's also going to have the energy of your authentic self, because your identity is in that G center. So it's going to come up, it's going to come out through the 1 and then express through the 8, which is on the throat. And so it's interesting because on the this week, the earlier part of this week, we've got the energy coming down into the throat. And now we've got the energy going all the way around and out through the throat, where it has a lot more power. You want to be thinking about, what is your contribution? What is it that you want to give? You have extra energy for expressing your authentic self, for expressing what you know through your knowing circuit and through your intuition. It has more power. It's always good to be tuning into right timing, using your authority to see if it's right timing, using your strategy, which if you're a generator, a manifesting generator, is to respond or to be invited if you're a projector. And if you're a manifestor, you can go ahead and put it out there, although it's always good to be tuning into right timing, regardless of your type. And so this energy is going to have been really ripened by its journey through the chart. Now the Earth is going to move into the gate 14, which in traditional human design is known as power skills, which I think is kind of cracks me up. And in traditional human design, and then creation in quantum human design. This is also known as a lucky gate. Like, people who have this defined in their chart, if they're connected to the higher expression of this energy, just have lucky things happen to them. It can be pretty cool. And so it's on the sacral, so it's a generated energy. It's a powerful energy. It's the power of life force energy, and it gives you, you can direct that energy in many different ways. Kind of traditionally, it's known as the energy for work. Okay, it can be the energy for sex, but it's kind of known as the energy for work and to work for money or for resources. But in its most advanced or most awakened state, the 14 is the ability to create, but with ease, the resources that you need to make your contribution, which you're then going to be expressing through that 8, right? And also to not be so concerned about money that you actually just have the faith that all the resources that you need are going to come to you when you need them, and that you don't have to be worried about creating money. Now, if you're in a mindset of scarcity, and I actually have been connected very closely with somebody who's been committed to his scarcity, it's kind of locked in place in that 14. So know if you've had a challenge with scarcity while the earth is transiting this 14, you can have an opportunity to shift that by leaning into this higher aspect, this kind of ease with creating and attracting resources and being able to do that through your work in the world, through your contribution in the world. Okay, let me just see. Okay, so read together, the way I would interpret this is when you believe that you will have all the resources you need to make your contribution in the world, you'll feel supported to express your authentic self and your inner knowing. That you will embrace your intuition. You will feel the truth of it in the core of your being. And you will understand that you being you, right? You just being you is your contribution and your purpose. And that will be best if it springs from this self-acceptance, this self-love, self-appreciation that comes from the G center. So that's your opportunity starting on Saturday through from the 15th to the 20th of May. And I will follow up a little bit about this in next week's episode of What's New with Human Design. Thanks so much for being here with me today for What's New with Human Design. If you like the video, please give it a thumbs up and hit the subscribe button. And if you would like to book a reading with me, you can find out more about me and my work at sovereigntybydesign.com. Many blessings, much love. Bye for now.